My name is Norman Eugene Bates. I've gone by Gene most of my life except for the time that I was in service because you have to sign everything payroll signature. So, and I grew up in Mountain View, Wyoming, and I enlisted there. So, and enlisted in 1972. Just barely before they pulled my draft number, so they were still doing that, and I had decided that I was going to join the military, and went ahead and volunteered. And honestly, I was going to do that regardless of whether they still had the draft operating or not, but it was just one of those things that I felt like I needed to do that, and I really didn't want to work in one of the Trona mines at the time. So,
what unit were you attached to during your time in Vietnam, sir?
At the time, I was actually with HML 367, which is a Huey squadron. We were actually on Fatima, Okinawa at the time. So I didn't do a full tour. We just did the evacuation of Saigon in Phnom Penh, Cambodia, did Operation Eagle Pull and Frequent Wind. So, like I said, by joining in '72, I figured I'd missed the whole thing. You know, the Marines were already out or coming out, and so I just happened to be on Okinawa when they started gearing up to go on over and do that. So.
Would you, maybe, if you would like to, would you describe for us the evacuation out of Saigon, sir?
Well, for us, we actually started a little bit ahead of time on Okinawa. We, as young enlisted guys, you know, by the time the word trickled to us, we were getting ready to go to the Philippines for a big field exercise, you know. So, but that meant because the squadron, as a combat squadron, had left Vietnam in '71, '72, I think, and so everything was all packed up as far as, you know, gun mounts and the equipment to deploy, especially back into a combat zone. It was all boxed up or thrown away. And so we were, you know, we geared up and spent a couple of months actually getting ready for all of that. And as far as we all understood, it was pretty much we were going down to the Philippines and participate in a big field exercise. And so and I think obviously it was part of the contingency plan, as they weren't going to tell us until they actually needed us. And when that happened, you know, we got rousted out of the barracks in the middle of the night, and the crew chiefs were told to go to the armory, then to the flight line, and, you know, draw weapons and all that kind of stuff. And when daylight arrived, the ships were already sitting out off of the coast of Okinawa for us to fly away to, and then we sailed down to the Philippines, to QB Point, and they farmed us out to various ships and the places that we were supposed to go. We also had a detachment from our squadron was already at sea, and that was standard practice. We kept a couple of birds always out, and so then when they put the task force together, then we hooked up and went with them.
What was your job with your Huey team?
I was a Huey crew chief and mechanic, of course, first of all, and then air crewman and second gunner, because, you know, on the ones that we were set up with internal guns, and we had a gunner and the crew chief manned the other gun. So, you know, but our main duty is, of course, as a crew chief, is the chief mechanic on each aircraft. So, yeah.
Oh, did you have a question? Or?
Go ahead if you had one.
How do you feel personally, sir, about the Welcome Home event that the state has put on this weekend?
I think this is fantastic. Sorry, my emotions.
Oh, you're
completely
perfectly fine.
understand,
Yeah,
sir.
you are perfectly fine.
Like I said, it's just, you know, a couple of vets, sir, so we get the emotions. We really do.
Well, my wife and I came up Thursday, and I've been sort of involved in the thing. Larry asked me a long time ago to be the local representative down in Green River. So, you know, I've been down working with a couple of the guys trying to get the word out and, you know, and that kind of thing. But I really didn't know what to expect because I haven't been up here and been on the committee or any of that kind of thing. And just amazed the way that they've, you know, organized it, put it together, made it all work. And I did, during the course of the last couple of days, you know, I've met more people than I've probably met in my entire life. And certainly, for me at least, I'm not the most personable guy in the world, but for whatever reason, this is just, I've felt comfortable enough to just walk up and start talking to people.
Mm-hmm.
And in the process, of course, I've, you know, met some great guys, and I think that's pretty much the general feeling of everybody is that, you know, it's a wonderful thing. I guess because I was there later, you know, I personally never really experienced any of the things that, you know, I've been told repeatedly by other guys, but I do remember that even in, you know, just by virtue of being in the military and wearing uniforms through, especially like LA and some of the bigger airports and things like that, if nothing else, you know, people would look at us. And, you know, I never had any, you know, any real like personal attacks or anything like that, but it was obvious that people weren't, I don't know the right word to say, but, you know, I mean, you just had that feeling that, you know, these people are not really happy to see us or don't care.
They're put by us.
Yeah, put off by us something. And so I can relate to what, you know, I've heard and talked to different vets over the years about that, you know, because I sort of stayed in the military. I got out of the Marine Corps, but years later I joined the Navy and stayed long enough to retire. So you know, I've had that attachment over the years. I've run into an awful lot of other guys and that kind of stuff. So, but yeah, so anyway, by and large, you know, I want to agree with people who say, well, it's 50 years, it's too late. But by the same token, you know, if you didn't come now, it's going to be, you know, however many years.
60 years.
Or
yeah,
exactly.
60 years be too late.
And, you know, and I don't really think that it's too late. It's something should have been done a long time ago. I do believe that,
Mm-hmm.
but in, you know, especially this event right now, right here, it's wonderful. I just think it's great.
Good.
What would you say to someone, you know, who's maybe thought about going to one of these reunion types of events, but maybe is a little hesitant to? You know, I've talked to a lot of guys today who say, you know, I was really hesitant to go to this. What would you say to someone, you know, who might see this and, you know, think the same thing? You know, maybe I should go to one of these, or.
Well, I don't know, I understand it is kind of hard, and you know, different people have maybe deeper feelings about a lot of stuff. I personally have always been kind of proud of the fact that I am a veteran, and such as it was that I served in Vietnam, and part of that I think is based on because I took a break, but I came back, and then I continued, and you know, of course I did Desert Storm and another tour in 04 and 05, so and of course, which that's a whole nother story, but basically I think it's something that the guys who hesitate about it, unless they really have some real deep reason not to, I would say they should do this. If for no other reason, then you find a whole bunch of other guys that weren't so sure, and will probably be one of the first ones to tell you that, what was I thinking? Why wouldn't I have come?
So do you think this event has, I guess, given you a little bit more of a outlet with other vets that you didn't know were around the state? I guess, people with closer stories to yours, or people that you can talk to that might have been in.
Well, one of the big things that I've found is that I'm pretty well involved with the American Legion, and also the Marine Corps League. So, and I've met more people and more guys involved with those two organizations than I have in 3 years of being involved with them. You know, I mean, here in the state.
Yeah.
And just in these last 4 days, I've handed out more business cards, got more business cards, talked to more people, and in that, you know, that is a big deal to me, because you know, the networking, and there's so many different groups doing different programs, that the more people that you can bounce ideas off of, or see what, as a for instance, I think it's the Patriot Guard guys, before they destroy flags, you know, when they do the ceremonial thing, they cut the individual stars out, and then they give them away like challenge coins. And that's just amazing. I had never ever heard of that until today. And I'm thinking, wow, we have a flag collection station. Why don't we try something like that? You know, I mean, so little things, but just the idea of meeting people and networking, especially among the veterans organizations, is probably the big thing that I'm taking away from this.
Cool. Definitely glad that, you know, the Vietnam guys get to interconnect like that. Something like this. That's awesome. So.
Did you have a question, Chris?
I do have a question, Norman. Since you got in a little later, and you started to hear things about Vietnam before you got into the service, how did that impact you, and did that ever make that more of a difficult decision for you, as far as because of what you were starting to hear at home?
You know, well, being from small town over in Mountain View, I think I had a conversation earlier today. We were talking about, we had friends when we were still in high school who were drafted, did a tour, got discharged, and were home by the time we graduated. So, you know, we actually had friends telling us genuine live war stories. And the few of us that, I think we had already made up our mind that we were going to go into the military. And I don't remember that any of them really told us anything terrible, you know. and I think maybe part of that was the small town. You know, we saw it as an honorable thing that, you know, they had gone, they had done their duty, and they'd come home. You know, in Uintah County there were only 6 actual deaths, and those were spread out over the entire war. And the last one I think was in the late 60s. So as kids we hadn't heard any of that. You know, yeah, we watched it on TV, but we were seeing our peers go away, do their thing, and come back. And so I don't think that we saw it, certainly not as a deterrent. And I don't really think that it changed anybody's feelings about whether we should or shouldn't, or, oh, I'm not going to do that. So
Appreciate that.
Yeah.
Thanks again for visiting with us.
Oh, not a problem
really,
at all.
Really appreciate that you did.
Right.
Do you have anything else you'd like to say? Any parting words or anything like that, sir?
Well, not really, other than thank you guys for doing all of this, and certainly thank these folks for putting this whole mess on.
Thank you for doing what you
It's
did.
awesome.
I mean, we wouldn't be here if it wasn't for you. So.
Yeah. And I know, I've heard Cody say this, and I've said it before. If you guys never did what you did, you know, that never would have paved the path for us to do what we did. You know, and
Right.
both of us, you know, we have a deep respect for all veterans, you know, especially Vietnam veterans. And I just think you guys are amazing, and I'm glad that we get to help give back to you. And I'm really glad that you guys are sharing your stories, because if you guys don't, you know, the younger generation's never going to get to hear these.
Yeah. Well, one of the things, and maybe, and I'll get way emotional, but, and it's not by any means a parting thing, but because I went to Desert Storm very soon after I joined the Navy Reserve. I joined in August, and I think my first drill we went on standby, and of course the day after they started, or the evening they started bombing Baghdad, my phone started ringing. So but and we went and we did our thing, but and as you guys probably know, the VFW and the American Legion in Bangor, Maine, since '91, and well, when we came back in '05 for my second deployment, they were still doing it. Have met every flight of guys coming back. Mm-hmm. And they certainly did that, you know, in '91 as we were coming back. So as we rotated back, there was like a fuel stop, whatever. We were maybe a half an hour, 45 minutes on the ground. And in the early days, it was just kind of a reception line and coffee and cookies, and those who wanted to dashed into the bar and snorked down a quick beer, you know, and then we were getting back onto the plane. But and of course I was older than a lot of the other guys, and but probably my first and the best welcome home that I ever had was there. I was standing around, just kind of standing in the middle of the lobby, and a guy came up to me. He was obviously very close to my age, maybe a little older, in a woodland cami jacket and his ribbons, and came up and, of course, shook my hand and grabbed me by the arm and welcomed me home. And that, of course, in turn, because I knew who he was and what that was about, since then I try real hard to welcome every veteran I see. So, with that, welcome home.
Appreciate it, Norman.
Welcome home, sir.